Hello, Happy New Year to my lovely Year 6s. You're seeing me in some sports gear, a bit of excited school today. And we're going to talk about how we preserve foods. How we make sure our foods last as long as possible. Awesome. We want foods to last as long as possible. That's easy peasy. Where does the science come into this? Well, most of the science comes from our friendly equation, respiration. So perhaps you may want to remember what respiration is. In fact, that's your first question. Good luck. But there are a few other things you can do, of course. The actual ways we preserve food. The actual things we do to make sure food lasts longer. So why does food go out of date anyway? Well, most of the time it's due to bacteria. Because if it's yummy food for us, most of the time it's yummy food for them too. So they eat it. And they will make lots more bacteria babies. And make lots more and multiply out of control on this piece of cheese or bread or fruit or whatever it is. And then of course they make toxins. They can do things that can damage the cells in your body. Something make you feel very ill because of those toxins they make. So we don't want them. Granted, your body can usually cope with some bacteria. No food stuff will be perfectly safe. But if we have too many, our body can't fight it. Remember, it's the white blood cells in our body that are going to fight off any bacteria to get into our bloodstream. And without them, that's only an army of cells, and if there's so many of these, they'll be overrun and it will take too long for you to get better. You will feel ill. We don't want that. There are other defences too. For example, our stomach is filled with lots of acid, so that helps to destroy a lot more bacteria too. But again, if there's too many, some might get through, and then become a problem. So we want as little bacteria as possible. There's a few different ways you can do that. Firstly, we can put food in cans, tins. Why? Because if I put it in a tin, nothing can get in, nothing can get out. So make that can nice and hot when I'm making the food, and then shut the lid. All the bacteria in there will die. If it gets too hot, the bacteria kind of start to denature, they start to break down, they start to just not be bacteria anymore, they can't exist. So put it in a can, make sure the can's nice and hot. That's awesome. In the same kind of way, you can make things colder. We have fridges and freezers, and we put lots of things in there, and they of course make food last longer. They don't make it last forever. Pretty much the food in your cans, that can survive for a very long time. Things in fridges and freezers, they still go out of date. By having them at a cold temperature, the bacteria will reproduce slower, if at all. But over time, you may slow the process, but they may get more and more and more still, to a point where your milk smells horrible or your cheese is too stinky to eat. So there are definitely options that we can have. We can also dry food. For example, most of the pasta and the rice that we eat in Sweden isn't fresh, isn't straight from the plant. They're dried. And by drying food, of course, we take out water. Water is really important for animals to survive. So a bacteria will not be able to survive in a perfectly dry place. So if we dry food, it should be safe from them to survive. Another thing we can do, and one we've been doing for many centuries is adding salt or sugar to food. You may see old ways of preserving meat and hams by putting loads and loads of salt over it. Or you could see with things like fruits, by having lots of sugar, we can make jams, and jams silk that can last a really long time. It's because if you have the salt and the sugar, the bacteria then they can't keep their water in, because all the water wants to go to the salt and go to the sugar. So suddenly you find that the salt and the sugar the bacteria can't take any nutrients from the very, very tasty yam or the tasty meat, because what happens all the time is that all the liquids from the bacteria get sucked out of it, and without those liquids the bacteria will die. Final thing we can do is we could use acids. Things that are kept in acid are probably going to kill most bacteria. Most bacteria cannot survive in acid. Again, in history we have used vinegar very often to make sure we stop any bacteria from working at breaking down our food. Many different techniques we have, and of course making sure you know why is super important. One more thing that we actually do, and it's quite a modern process, much more than these two at least. It's pasteurization. I need to spell this right, because Mr. Pasteur was French, and I always spell it wrong, but that's correct. Pasteurization. And this is what we use most often with milk, because we can have long life milk, and we can have milk that's much safer to drink now than it ever was before. So we get the milk out the cow, and then what we do is we super quickly heat it, only for a few seconds. Heat it up really high, kill the bacteria, and then bring the temperature back down. That milk tastes the same and is much safer to drink. There's no bacteria going to be in there. If you do it for a longer period, you get the UHT milk, which is even better. Does taste different, but generally that's the best way of doing it. The idea that we can just for a small amount of time heat it up and then cool it back down. Different ways. And the extension question this week is asking you to, in my example, suggest what things we could do to make food last longer. Remember to explain why. Remember to put the science in. Remember to compare which is best. One of those national test skills we're going to work on is when you give an opinion, you can explain your opinion using science. You can all do it. Keep it up, guys. That's all from Mr. Robertson. Very well done. Adios.